Okay. Okay. You win. I give up. You guys win. Welcome back, everyone. I did not really think about doing this for this channel. I don't know that necessarily that I am capable of doing it from a filming perspective, but we're going to give it a good shot. So, overwhelming number of requests, make the baits, make the baits, make the baits. So we are going to make the baits. We may turn this into a larger series, maybe with a view to a trip that I'm going to do with Fran or something like that. We may turn it into something where we are preparing to go fishing. But you guys win. We're going to do it. Well, we're going to try and do it. Now, there's a couple of provisos. As you know, we don't have our normal filming space back yet. Mrs. Bass Fishing Basics is going for a life-altering surgery this week, so it's not going to get done. So I'm telling you now, guys, that we're going to film in a couple of different locations in the house. So if the lighting is bad or the acoustics are bad or stuff like that, you're just going to have to bear with me. This is not a very big house. UK houses generally don't have basements, so we can't really have a dedicated space where I can put all the lure making stuff into one room. It would frighten you if you saw how much that encompasses. So when I'm doing a particular discipline, say when we're pouring lead, I pack all that out, then we pour the lead. And then when we're going to airbrush blanks, pack all that stuff away, pack all the airbrushing gear out, then we airbrush the blanks. So that's what it's going to look like. The lures I've decided to start with, we're going to start with some jigs, because that is what I am most confident that I'll be able to get right on camera. It is definitely going to be a two-part. So what's going to happen is once we finish here on the main cam, the next thing you'll see of me will be either close-ups of a lead pot, close-ups of a vise, close-ups of whatever. So you're not going to see me again until the end of the video, which I'm sure most of you are happy about anyway. If you guys like this style of video, when I get custom orders in, I will ask the customers if they mind if I film me making the baits without telling you what lakes they're going to be used on, because I think that's only fair. So for this first one, we are going to generalize. This could be a jig that you could use anywhere in the continental United States for now. You could also use it in other places. I'm sure it's a very generic type of color. I've made similar color jigs which I've used with success in South Africa, and I've also made jigs with similar colors that I've used in America and caught fish on them. So I'm pretty sure you could catch fish on them anyway. It's kind of a generic crustacean type color, so either crab or crawdad. So what I did was I went online and I looked up the two most prevalent crawdad or crawfish species in the continental United States, and it was a white river crawdad, which looks like this, and a red swamp crawdad or crawfish, which looks like this. So you will notice that there's a lot of similarities in the colors. They are very earthy colors, lots of browns, lots of reds, bit of orange, and there's many variants. If you look online of these crawfish color-wise, many variants. And a lot of you guys that are watching from the US will say, but it's a signal, there's signal crayfish and this. Yes, I agree, all of those things. So, but what we're going to do for this first video is we're going to take these two crawdads, the most prevalent two types of crawdads in the United States, and we are going to make baits that you could use to fish in areas where those crawdads occur. And there's going to be a lot of steps to this. So you guys that asked for the Make the Baits video, you're getting it now. It's coming. And it's going to be done my way. And I do things slightly differently to how other bait making channels do it. So, this is not a professional bait making channel like Chris at World's Worst Fishing or SDG Lurecraft or Bait Chucking, those guys. I am not set up to do that, so we're going to do it the way that I do it. I'm going to narrate through the close-ups, which most of this video is going to have to be so you can see what I'm doing. If you have any questions, I may well leave something out, because obviously when I make baits, I just do it automatically, the way I have my proprietary way of doing it, my way of doing it. If I leave something out and you see it and you don't know what I'm up to, put it in the comments below. Just ask the questions and say either on video 1 or it'll probably be a 2 video, or video 2 you did this, what is that? And I'll happily answer that. You will forgive me, guys, if I miss something out. I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited to do it. We're going to give it a try. If you like it, comment below that you like it. Share the video, that'd be great. Tell your friends about it. And if there's enough interest in it, we'll do some more. If not, we'll go back to our regular filming. And let's leave it at that for now. Okay, so here we go. A couple of things that we need to be aware of here before we get this whole thing on the road. When you're pouring lead, you need to be in an extremely well ventilated area. Lead fumes are poisonous and they are really not very good for you. So what you can't see in the background here is I have all the windows open and our back door open, which is over there. And I also have a fan blowing in the background, blowing this way across the top, which you can't hear because it's a very quiet fan. But just something that I wanted to make clear to you guys. The important thing here with everything that we're going to do in both these videos is safety. Okay, I am not the world's most safe person. And because of the video, I will not be wearing some of the safety equipment, but it is very important that you do. Particularly if it's parents teaching younger children how to do this. Guys, this becomes a lifelong thing for a lot of people. So if you do it right from the outset, you'll be fine. So you'll notice here, I'm working on my kitchen sink. It is the best lighted area that I could find, or best lit area that I could find for doing the filming. There's several lights in our kitchen, and obviously this is a metal counter. I want to make it really, really clear here, guys. You are working with molten metal. It is not a joke. And oftentimes, and this is not a criticism, but you will see guys with lure making channels just carrying on and doing their thing. It's not a joke, guys. Okay, this stuff will mess you up. Lead, when it lands on your skin, does not stop burning until it freezes or solidifies. It's going to hurt, and I have got scars to prove it because I'm stupid. So, some kind of face protection and breathing protection. In this particular case, this is not a particulate, these are not particulate filters, these are fume filters, which is what you're going to need for everything we're going to do in these videos. Okay? Don't have to have this exact one. I just have this one because I can. Then, protection for your hands. Again, this is a furnace glove. It is made for working with molten metal. Some kind of eye protection. And then the tools that we use, you don't need massively complicated tools. So I'm going to show you what I use. I have a pair of normal pliers. You'll see what I use them for just now. I have a pair of these cut-off pliers. I think they are called gate shears. You can see they're quite tiny. These are awesome for cutting lead. You don't have to have these, but they are very inexpensive. You can get them off your favorite online shopping sites. And they just do a great job of cutting the lead and cutting it cleanly. You don't have to have these. You could use cross-cut or diagonal pliers. I'll show you how we use them a bit later on. Then I have an old blunt knife. I'm going to show you what I use that for just now. And then I have just an old teaspoon, and I use that for removing impurities from the lead when applicable. Okay, so that's that. Now, today, we aren't going to be using any of my modified molds. So we're going to be using bog standard molds that you can buy from Do It and make these baits yourself if you want to. So before we look at the molds, let's talk about how we're going to melt the lead. We will not be using this today, but this is one of my bulk pots. This is only a 10-pound pot. In other words, it can hold 10 pounds of lead in the furnace area or the hot pot area here. This is my smaller one. I have a 20-pound one when I do bigger orders. So this is the baby one. But because we're only going to do a couple of let me show you how it works. So it heats the lead here. The temperature control is over here. And then the lead comes out of the bottom here when you lift this handle. You don't need anything this fancy if you are pouring baits for yourself. So because we're only going to pour a couple of baits today, we're going to use my hot pot. This is what I use when I'm pouring experimental baits. It doesn't come with this wire. I have changed the wire. This is thermal stainless steel wire. It's just something that I prefer. You don't have to do that. And essentially, it is a pot with a handle. This is over here is the element where it heats up. This is a stand to stop it burning whatever it's on. And it heats the lead up here. The lead is liquid. You pick up the pot, you pour whatever you're going to pour. It's as simple as that. It's very uncomplicated, very easy to use once you get the hang of it, and great when you only want to pour a couple of baits. So that's the guy we're going to use today. Here are our two molds that we're going to use today. Today we are going to pour a football jig and an Arky style or flipping jig. Now, do not panic about knowing what hooks and things that you need to use. Do It does all that for you. So, inside here, it tells you what size hook to use, and obviously what size the lure is going to be. And then any other information that you want is on the bottom of the mold. Like I said, these are bog standard Do It molds. You guys can go out and buy them yourselves. Okay, so we are going to make a 3/8 ounce mold or 3/8 ounce jig. It recommends a 3/0 hook. I'm not going to do that because don't ever do what I'm told, and I'm going to use a 4/0 hook. And the hook that I am going to use today is a mustard. So there is a 4/0 mustard hook. Just move that way you can see it. And here is a bait keeper. Get that to focus. Sorry guys, this is going to take some doing, I promise. It's not easy. There we go. And this also goes into the mold. Lies next to the hook like that. And the last piece of the puzzle, and this is for both molds, the dirt molds come with, it's called a base hole pin. There's a special cavity in the mold where the base hole pin goes, and that's to create the hole. Why can I not get this thing to focus? For the weed guard. So that creates the hole for the weed guard. I don't use those. I use Teflon pins. It's just a little Teflon pin about the size of a matchstick, because it makes it easier to get the base hole pins out of the lead once the lead solidifies. So that's my setup. And that's it, guys. As long as you've got the right hooks, any other bits and pieces that are recommended for the mold, obviously you don't have to use the bait keeper on this mold if you don't want to do it. There is a cone on the bottom over there. I don't know if you can see it. I'll show you a close up again. But for me, this has been a fantastic mold. I love the Do It football jig mold because it does everything that you want out of a football jig. So what you're going to see next is the lead pot set up, mold set up, everything ready to go. And then we'll take it from there. Something else I forgot to mention, sorry, you'll notice that the inside of these molds are blackened. That's called smoking. The way I do it is by using a normal tea candle or a wax candle. Light the candle, hold the mold like that, and just allow the smoke to fill up the cavities and turn them black with the soot. And that's essentially wax soot. And then what that does is it allows the lead to come out of the mold a bit easier. Another thing that you could do, which would be far more professional, which I have not done, is that you could in fact get graphite spray and use that. And it works fantastic. A lot of guys do that. I've always used the smoke method and it works well for me. So that would be up to you. Okay, so what's happening here now is you can see the bottom of the pot. The element is starting to get red. There's an element inside there underneath that pot. The lead is inside the pot itself, and the two molds are on top of the pot. I like to always preheat my molds. There are certain molds you don't need to preheat where the jigs or whatever the case might be are tiny, but I put my molds on top of the pot and I preheat them whilst the lead is melting. So TikTok, here we go. Okay, so it's 15 minutes later. Oh, the lead has melted. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I'm just going to move that handle and see if you can see that lead is moving. It's liquid inside there now. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to pour our football jig first. So, let's try and just make sure that this is all in shot here. This is difficult, guys. Okay. Don't touch the mold. The mold is hot now. Let's place the hook. Place the bait keeper. You've got to be a little bit careful here, guys. There's our Teflon pin, like I said. Push it right up till it touches the hook. There we go. Close the mold. Make sure the mold is closed properly. Glove on. Clamp the mold tightly with your hands. I've got a piece of plywood here that I always use. I put the mold on the plywood. Be aware of which hole you're going to pour into. Pick up the pot firmly. Remember, guys, it's hot. And just a gentle pour. Slowly, slowly. Once the water, once the lead comes out of the top of the sprue, it's full. Now give it a few seconds for the lead to freeze. Open the mold. take our pliers and gently pull the jig head out of the mold. Don't touch that part. That shiny part is hot. Pull the pin. Right, we'll do our other mold now. Remember guys, these molds have been heating up on the lead pot the whole time. So the molds are hot. When you pour into a cold mold, it sometimes does not mold correctly. You get air pockets or little holes in the jig head and stuff like that. So the mold is dangerous now. Set up our mold. We're going to do a 3/8 ounce pitching jig. So I like to use this 5/0 VMC hook. I just like a bigger starter hook for my pitching jigs. Base hole pin. Make sure the mold is closed properly, no gaps. And pour. You'll see guys that it doesn't take a lot of lead to fill up the molds. Let it freeze. Open the mold. Perfect pour. Remove the base hole pin and we are good to go. Right, so ordinarily when you are pouring, you would pour a few jigs for yourself or your friends or whatever, your kids, whatever you're doing. But that's for our purpose today. We are done with pouring the lead. So now we kill the lead pot, switch off the power. This pot is going to be hot for around about an hour and a half. Do not have it anywhere where anyone can come into contact with it. It will burn, and it burns bad. The molds take about, let's just say to be safe, about half an hour to cool down. Now we move on to the next phase. Okay guys, so this is my workstation. I'll just show you quickly. It's nothing special. I went to a thrift store and I bought a El Cheapo set of plywood drawers. Basically, it's when I say El Cheapo, I think it cost me $3. Then bust out the internal frame, and then you can see at the bottom it's got those little bits there that I just secured it with so that it's solid. And I took one of the drawers, just sit down here, I know this is probably shaky, and I turned the drawer into the shelf and the backing part at the back of the table, the desk. I can see it there. And everything that's on this workstation came from this El Cheapo set of drawers, really. The only thing that didn't was, you can see that my things of cotton or yarn there, I just bought some dowel plugs that you would use for plugging holes when you were doing woodwork. Drilled a hole, glued them in, measured the distances between the cotton, and just put the dowel plugs in. The rest of the stuff, I just drilled holes and it holds all my tools. That white thing that you see there is something that we use here in the UK to put over the radiators to dry washing. That's what I hang my baits on when I'm busy working on them. Oh, secret projects, you can't see that. And then these lights here are fantastic. They're just a cheap set of USB LED lights that I bought off our favorite online shopping platform. I think they were $7. And then you can see I've got my music there. That's my old cell phone that I use for listening to YouTube podcasts. And then a simple USB charger in the middle to charge everything up. So that is my little workstation. And I'll just back up, guys. And it is because I have very limited space to work here in our craft area. And I'm going to do a quick turn around here for you to have a look. I said I wouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it. So that's the fishing side, where we make all the lures and all that kind of stuff, and where we usually sit when we're making our content. And this is Mrs. Bass Fishing Basics side, which is all craft stuff. So that's my little room where I make my content and where I make my baits. Okay, here we go. Next phase. Gate shears. This is the sprue here. This is where we poured the lead into the mold. Take your gate shears. Do not cut all the way through the sprue. So just nick the sprue with the gate shears, like that. Hold the jig in whichever hand, left or right-handed you are, and just wiggle it. And it makes a nice clean break. So we'll do that for both our baits. Gate shears, done. Now the blunt knife that I showed you earlier, you'll see where we've cut off the sprue. There's a rough area. I hold the bait firmly in your hand. Just take the knife and smooth it. Then what I like to do is I inspect around the eye of the jig and the hook shank to make sure there's no flashing. And flashing is, I don't know if you can see that there, it's just a tiny little overspill in the mold where there's an imperfection in the mold or whatever the case is. On this one it's not too bad, so we are good to go. So we'll do the same again with the football jig. There's that rough area there. Blunt knife, hold the jig firmly. Nice and smooth. And that is our cleanup. It's as simple as that, guys. Obviously make sure that your hole where your base hole pin was is good. Around the eye of the hook is clean. Everything is good. And now we move on to powder coating. Right on. Powder coating. Here we go. Ordinarily, for powder coating, if I was doing a bigger order, I would use something called a fluid bed filter. Okay, so this is a custom made one. It was made for me by a friend of mine. It's essentially made out of plumbing supplies. Your powder coat or powder paint would go inside there. This is a chamber. It's about probably 3 inches long, and a small fish tank pump gets connected onto this fish tank valve over here, so you can regulate the amount of air pushing the powder up or getting the powder to suspend. So the pipe would be connected to that. So that would stand like that. You switch on the pump, it blows air through a membrane at the bottom of here, and it makes the powder come up and suspend. Now, today, we're only going to powder coat the baits that we've made. So we don't need this guy. But I would use this under normal circumstances. Heat gun and powder coating paint. So if you are only making baits for yourself, you would normally get your powder coat in a bottle that looks like this. Now, because I do quite a lot of orders, I obviously have my powder coat in bulk. And also today I'm using this big container because we're filming, and it makes it easier for me to show you how I do it. So what I want to do, because we're not using the fluid bed, is I want to agitate, spill all the powder coat all over your desk. I want to agitate the powder coating paint or powder till you see that it moves easily. There's air between the paint particles or molecules, and it's nice and fluffy, so that you can see it there. Now, okay, powder coating, here we go. So this next part's going to be loud, so I'm not going to narrate it, but essentially what's going to happen is this. This here is a silicone plug. And this stops the paint from going into the hole that was created by the base hole pin. So you take the plug and you just twist it until it goes firmly into that hole. Okay, then we're going to heat this jig head up on this heat gun. And as a general rule, for a 1/4 ounce jig head, 8 to 10 seconds. For a 3/8 ounce jig head, 12 seconds. 1/2 ounce jig head, 15 seconds. 3/4 ounce jig head, 18 to 20 seconds. Bigger than that, you're on your own. So we heat it up, 15 seconds. We take it, we put it in our fluffy powder. We shake it around very quickly. Then we tap off the excess powder on the side of this bowl. So here we go. Okay, what happens next? I'm not going to film. I made these little hooks out of baling wire. See if we can get that to focus. I just put it through the eye of the jig, and what that does is it keeps that free of paint. That goes into the oven, and it goes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 to 27 minutes. But we're not filming that part. You'll just have to trust me. Here we go. Right, whilst we're waiting, what we'll do is we'll get everything ready to do the skirts. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do one wire-tied skirt, and I'll show you how to make one normal skirt as well. I'm not going to put the normal skirt on the jig because I'm making these jigs for myself and I prefer them to be wire-tied, but I'll show you how we make one. We're going to need a few tools for this. I have several different types of scissors. I have these with the shorter blades, and then when I'm trimming my skirts, I use these ones with the longer blades. I use bent nose pliers when I'm doing my wire tying, so I pull the wires tight with it. You'll see that in a minute. A normal, just mini pair of pliers for tightening up the wire. Side cutters for trimming the wire. And then a dog comb, which I use for straightening the skirts up. I'll show you how I do that too. Over here, which you can't see, is my tying vise, which you'll see when we start tying the jig. When I am doing the normal collars, I use a skirt tool, which looks like this. Essentially what happens is you put the skirt on there, it gets pulled into the tube, you push the collar over the skirt. It's as simple as that. It's not complicated. When I'm doing the wire tying, I use what is essentially a wacky rigging tool, and I'll show you how I do that. But that's pretty much all it is. It's just a brass tube with one end that's in a conical shape, and then you put the O-ring over there, and the O-ring is what holds your skirt together for the time that you're tying it. But I'll show you how all that works. Don't worry about that. So in the meantime, let's start getting our skirts ready. So if you remember, right at the beginning of the video, we decided we were going to keep it simple, and we were going to make the jig color the same as the red swamp craw crossed with the white river craw. So we are going for various shades of brown, some with orange. This has got orange dots. This is a great one. A little bit of black and some red. Now, When you go out and buy your skirts, the great thing is that if you're buying from Skirts Unlimited, Skirts Plus, Do It, Barlow's, any of Hagen's, any of those kind of places, you can normally get your skirt material in tens. So you get 10 skirts in a packet, which is very inexpensive. What this allows you to do is, once you've decided what color you're going to make your jigs, you just order 10 of that skirt color, because they come in packs of 10, and do it accordingly. I do things slightly differently. I like to blend my colors. So you'll see here, there's a bunch of different skirt colors with all kinds of dots and sparkles and glitter and all kinds of stuff on them. You do not have to do that. You can pick the skirt material that suits you. When you are making a jig with a collar, the most number of skirt tabs, and we will be cutting these tabs in half this way, that you will get into this comfortably is 5 or 6 at a push. When I am making standard jigs, in other words, football jigs, pitching jigs, brush jigs, I use 6 half tabs. You don't have to do that. You can use 5 or 4 even, if that's something that, if you're going for a more finesse style profile or whatever. But for the purpose of today's exercise, we are going to make skirts that have 6 half tabs. Now, it helps if you take a little bit of time to get everything ready ahead of time before you start tying. For this, I use the short bladed scissors, and what I like to do is, and we're only going to do 1 or 2 of these, hold the tabs with your thumb and forefinger of each hand, and then take this finger here, and without stretching the tabs out, just hold them loosely, just do that with them. And what that does is, it just separates all the individual strands on the skirt. And once you've done that a couple of times, you can see there, everything is separate now. Let's flip it over. Aim for about halfway. Snip. Take it in each hand like that, thumb and forefinger, just pop it off. And what I'll do is I'll prepare all my tabs ahead of time, so that what I often do is I put them in order. And like I said to you, I like to blend my colors into one another. So when I am planning a jig, if someone asks me to make a jig that looks like that, and in this case we're going to just call it a natural crawl color for the purpose of this exercise, I like to look very carefully at the photo, see which colors are on top of our crawl and which colors are on the bottom of the crawl. And in this particular case that we're going to do today, our crawl has got red on the top of it and brown, and then on the bottom it has the lighter brown again and some brown, and then I'm just going to put in a little bit of black just for contrast. So I'm going to get all of this ready off camera, and then once that's good to go, the next thing that you'll see is me preparing the skirts to put them onto the jig heads before we tie them. Okay, whilst we're waiting, I'm going to show you how we make the skirt with the rubber collar. So this is the skirt tool. It's very straightforward, little piece of metal, cone on one side, hook through the middle, wire hook through the middle. You just take the rubber collar, push it down over the tube, take your skirt material, you're going to do 5 in this case just to show you. This is the color that I want on the top of the jig, so that goes in the middle. So that's my top colors, and here are my bottom colors. Keep them all together. Take our skirt tool, push the hook through all of the tabs like that, into the skirt tool, pull the wire up, pop the little collar off. And then I use the inch marks on my work mat here, but you can do it however you want to get it roughly to the middle of the skirt. So let's do this together. The skirt is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 inches long. So we want it roughly at 2.25 inches. About there. We would then fold this back. This is the top of our jig. Insert the hook. Just use this to show you. Insert the hook through there and then push it all the way over that little collar there on our jig that is still baking in the oven because it is not yet ready. So that's how you would make a skirt with a rubber collar. Pretty straightforward, not difficult. You don't need any specialized tools other than the little skirt making tool, which I think costs less than $10. The next thing that you're going to see is us getting ready to make the skirts for the wire tie. Right. Our jig heads are now fully baked. The powder coat has hardened. We're going to do a quick inspection. Get rid of the hooks. Make sure that the holes are clear. And make sure that the holes for the weed guards are clear. What I like to do is I take a 3.2 millimeter drill bit. I do not know what that is in inches. I tried to look it up online and it gives me decimal inches and not actual fractions, but it's a 3.2 millimeter bit, and I just take it in there and I just give it a twist. And what that does is it just clears out any paint that may have gone over the edge of the hole, which will impede the weed guard. Nice and clean. Okay, now we are going to assemble our skirt and then we're going to tie it. So just take the O-ring, push it over the back of the wacky tool, just like that. Now, like I said to you earlier, I want to blend the colors of my skirt. So the way I have laid this out here is kind of the order that I want it in. So I want this brown with the orange dots to be my topmost color. So that will be in the middle of the skirt. And I've actually laid this out incorrectly. I want the red to be right at the bottom. The red is very vibrant. So I want that to be less visible but still prominent. Okay, so we're gonna build this skirt now. So the one with the red in it first. Then this mottled brown color. Then the one with the orange dots. Then the same mottled brown color again. We're making a 6 half tab skirt, guys. Then this kind of peanut butter with red flake. And then the black, because the black is such a dominant color, I want it right at the bottom of my skirt. Might be a little bit confusing now, but you'll see it once we put the whole skirt together. Wacky rig tool, slide it in, pop the ring off. And guys, you've got to be a little bit careful here because the ring is free sliding on this thing. And you've got to do it by eye. It takes a little bit of experience. It's not difficult. Just get it kind of halfway on your skirt. Now, the next thing you're going to see is my tying vise. Right, so this is how I do this. You will figure out your own way, I'm sure. I like to just fold them back and I keep the bottom colors on my hand. So then position them a little bit better. Make sure everything is in order on the top. Just do that with your fingertip. It will spread them out a little bit. Take your jig head. Make sure you go between the two lots of tabs. And push it all the way up. Then into the vise. And let everything hang down and just kind of arrange the skirts. Make sure that it covers the whole jig head. It's all the way around the lead collar of the jig head. Okay. Then I take my stainless steel wire, which I have doubled. This is 0.18 stainless steel wire. Put it on this side of the O-ring. And just cross it over like that. Take my long nose pliers, one on each side. Pull it away from itself, apart, and then one twist. That's it. Take the ends of the wire, 1, 2, 3 twists, and then out of the vise. I then pull the O-ring down onto the shank of the hook, so it's out the way. And then keeping this skirt material tight in this hand, take the normal pliers, grab the twist, and I twist it until I feel it go tight. Don't over tighten it, you'll cut through the skirt material, but you'll feel it starts to resist. There it is, it's tight. So that one was 1.5 turns. Take your diagonal cutters, trim the wire off, and then I just take the diagonal cutter like that, and I flatten that end against the head. Right, so what's going to happen now is, you don't have to do it this way, but I'm going to trim the ends of the tabs off. And then we're going to flip this over and we're going to trim the jig. Okay, so we don't need this O-ring anymore, so we can get rid of that guy. Then I just take these short scissors again, hold the tabs on the end, trim. And do the same to the other side. Make sure that they're all trimmed properly. I messed up here. Right, now we flip it all over. Takes a bit of arranging, guys. And then we take our dog comb and we just run it through the strands of the jig, just to make sure that there's no little bits of the tag ends that are still attached. Get it all straight, and it straightens the individual strands to where they need to be so that they're hanging straight. Take our jig like that. See how dominant the red is, guys? Hold it tight on the shaft of the hook. And this is how I do my measurement. I put the first joint of my thumb on the bend of the hook. This is like black magic stuff. Take my longer scissors, and all I'm doing here is I'm trimming the ends level. You don't have to do this part. You could leave it untidy if you want to. Sometimes the jigs even look better when the skirts aren't tidy. And all that's left to do now is to put a dot of glue, and I use gel glue, on our weed guard and insert the weed guard into the hole that was made by the base hole pin right at the beginning. Now, you get a few different types of weed guards. I use two. I use the medium weed guard for my football jigs, and I use the stiff weed guard for my pitching jigs. And that's just purely for the different types of structure that I'm going to be fishing them in, or cover that I'm going to be fishing them in. Take our gel. One dot of glue gel. And I think this is finished, which does not help. On the end of the weed guard, like that. Make sure your skirt is out of the way. Push it firmly into the hole. And we are done. Don't touch the weed guard whilst the glue is still wet. Just set it aside and let it dry. That's it, guys. That is jig making 101. Okay, that's going to be the end of part 1 video covering the pouring of the lead and all those kind of things. Skirt materials, how we choose them, that type of stuff. Next week's video is going to have probably tying up the skirts and a few other things which I'm not going to tell you about just yet because it's going to be quite interesting. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next week.